We absolutely love what we do. If you like what we do, why not buy us a coffee? Just follow the link in the description below.
Why does every recipe I try need 18 ingredients, including a jar of something paste I'll never use again, but will sit in my fridge for 9 months? I just want dinner in the oven, fast. That's why I love Blue Apron's new one-pan assemble and bake meals. They send you fresh ingredients that are already chopped. All you do is put it all together and bake. That's it. No chopping, no weird leftovers, just delicious, easy-to-make meals. Get 20% off your first 2 orders with code APRON20. Terms and conditions apply. Visit blueapron.com/terms for more.
Comcast is committed to bringing access to the internet to all Americans, including rural communities across the country, like Sussex County, Delaware.
We were being left behind. Everybody around us seemed to have internet, but we did not. High-speed internet is one of those good things that we needed to help us move our farming, our small businesses, our recreation forward.
Learn more about how we're bringing our next-generation network to more people across the country at ComcastCorporation.com/investment in America.
Bustin' with the Boys is here to let you know that every college football Saturday, FanDuel is dropping profit boosts that can turn wins into bigger wins.
Sounds like we should rename Saturday Booster Day.
Nice.
21 plus and present in select states. Opt-in required. Bonus issued as non-withdrawable profit boost tokens. Restrictions apply, including any token expiration and max wager amount. See full terms at FanDuel.com/sportsbook. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER.
How are you, mate? You all right?
Fantastic. Good. We should do this every year, shouldn't we? This is 2 in a row.
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, we spoke about your last book, about 3 great men of football. This one is completely different. It's about lots of people, but it does centre around Ian Botham and Margaret Thatcher, who's on the front, and I looked at it and I thought, well, 2 really, really, really different people. But the more I've read this book, 2 people that are really kind of very similar. So briefly talk about the book and how you decided to write this book. And it is entitled Something Changed, and reading through, it really did change at that period of time of the Ashes test and Margaret Thatcher being in power, and there's a lot of synergy between the 2 of them, isn't there?
Yeah, absolutely. 2 things I'd say to that initial intro is that first of all, thank you very much for being a generous supporter of the last book that we talked about last year, the football book. Anybody that did read that would see that although it is different, there's an element running through it, which is the core that fascinates me in some of my recent writing, which is how sport, whether it be football, cricket, or anything else, can actually impact a nation's mood, how it can impact communities. And in this case, particularly in 1981, it was, I kind of took the narrative of the football book and dialed it up a notch because 81 was such a fascinating year. But in terms of sort of what it's about and your point about the way that it gradually dawned on you reading the book that there were some synergies between what might initially appear to be 2 rather disparate characters in Botham and Thatcher, that's exactly how the whole thing evolved for me. I was determined, there were 2 things that I'm determined it shouldn't have been when I set off. One was I didn't want to write another Botham's Ashes because, we all know about that. That one's been done to death. Nor is it meant to be a eulogy to Margaret Thatcher. I happen personally to think, everyone has their political opinions. And the more I went through this book, and certainly the formative years before Thatcher came to power, the more I've come to the opinion that Thatcher was actually what the nation needed at the time. Others will disagree with me. The fact that my great aunt was a left-wing member of the Labour cabinet in the 1970s means that I've got a foot in both camps. So hopefully it's reasonably balanced. But there were narratives. I set off from the point of view of wanting to tell the story of what I call a year like no other in 1981, from all sorts of aspects, not just the Ashes, but the way that culture impinged upon it, the weather impinged upon it. There were so many different things. But I would say three things emerged as I was writing it. The first was about relationships and the relationship between mood and reality, and how whatever is affecting your mood, or the communal mood of a nation, whether it be great weather or terrible weather, or whether it be fantastic national sporting achievement or vice versa, whether it be riots or it be royal weddings, that actually a change in mood basically often begets a change in reality. And therefore, it's very important how those factors that dictate the mood of the nation are probably more important than people would give them credit for. The second was the relationship between Botham and Thatcher, which was obviously not a direct relationship. But the more I looked into it, Botham was described by various people as almost the ultimate Thatcherite as a sportsman. And as I looked into it, the synergies of belief, their own personal principles, their approach to life in terms of believing in getting off your backside and doing something about it, they were very similar from those points of view. But what then struck me was how the paths of their careers, all the way through from when Botham first emerged in 1974 and Thatcher was elected, most surprisingly, as the leader of the Tory party a year later, the paths of their careers, their fortunes, etc., they really, without being too commercial about it, you have to read the book to actually see what you would otherwise think is the stuff of fiction. Just how closely they resembled each other, and at the very end of it, whatever you think about these two, because they're two people that will always they divided opinion at the time. They've gone on to divide opinion. They were loved by some, they were loathed by others, and they're pretty easy targets for the country's bearers of suspicion of those who succeed. But I think I quote Andrew Marr, the historian in the book, who concluded that what's not in doubt is that they were the architects of change and true icons of the age. And people forget that actually, at the time, probably with a bit of a nod to Bob Geldof later in the 80s, but Botham was such an iconic figure that alongside Thatcher, they probably were the two most recognisable faces in the country for a significant period of the 80s. So that's where it all came from. And then the very final thing, if you'll indulge me, Paul, the very final thing that emerged as I was writing it was that although the book's called Something Changed, I put a mini chapter in there, effectively saying that there's still nothing new under the sun. Because the book starts in around about 1975, when we just had a fairly centrist and a non-achieving Conservative government ousted by a Labour Party who were potentially voted in as slightly more left-wing than the British population is normally comfortable with, and within a short period of time, there was a lot of debate about unions running the country, about taxation, about this and the other. And actually, 50 years on to the very year, there are a lot of mirrors when you read the book of what I'm describing in where we sit today. So it's fascinating to me that I'm a lover, a bit like you, Paul. I'm fascinated not just by sport, but by music, by culture, and by how these things affect the politics and the development of the nation.
Absolutely, and I think your next book is Nothing Changes, because as you alluded to, and I was reading through...
Always write one that has the potential for a follow-up then, Paul.
Absolutely. But I was on holiday in Zante, and I was reading the book, and I couldn't put it down. I kept, when we get to restaurants and bars and that, I had to. But I was just absolutely fascinated, and I love the way that you went back and you had a chapter for the different times. I love the synergy with the royal weddings and winning a test series as well. I love the fact that the highest domestic football attendance was Manchester United versus Arsenal in 1948, 83,260 at Main Road. Yes, guys, not Old Trafford, at Main Road, because that's where United played in those days. There was lots of great musical references. There was wonderful quotes. It really takes you on a journey and recaptures your childhood. In fact, I wrote down, because I have done a playlist for it, because I'm just... well, what I do, I read the book and I'm writing things and I'm just making notes and stuff, and I put down my 12 favourite songs of that year, 1981. It was Ghost Town, Don't You Want Me, 1 in 10, Being With You, Tainted Love, Just Can't Get Enough, Imagine, Body Talk, Going Back to My Roots, Let's Groove, and Absolute Beginners, and Tales from the Riverbank, which was the flip side. There was just some great music. Birmingham City in 1981 were decent. Aston Villa sadly were better. We had the riots and with the specials, the two-tone revolution that swept through the country like, as I said to Sir Horace Panter, a bionic broom. It really was a time for change. We went to school in flares and clippy-clop shoes and then left school, the kids in our playground or schoolyards, whatever you want to say, or the classrooms. It looked like a specials concert. I think the Jam broke through barriers. We related to the idols around us, and music was very, very much a part of that British culture.
Well, I'm always conscious, Paul. I've said it in books before that we're all products of the years that formed us, and those were the years that formed me, and I do keep coming back to them. And of course, you and I would probably say, those dozen songs you've just rattled off there, you're not going to rattle those off at the end of 2025.
Couldn't name you one.
That's simply because that was our time. Although some may well argue that actually there was a bit more to it than that. But it was a phenomenal time of change, and one of the reasons, as a student and lover of history, and particularly modern history, that I wanted to delve into this was that there's a sort of truism or a belief that the landslide victory of the general election in 1983 that allowed Thatcher to do what she did for the rest of the decade, 18 months after being the least popular prime minister in history.
This message comes from Ethos. Discover the modern way to get life insurance all online. Protect your family's future against the unexpected in minutes, not months. With Ethos, you could get up to $3 million in coverage without a medical exam. Just answer a few health questions. Some policies are as low as $2 a day. Billed monthly. Get your free quote at ethos.com/audio. That's ETHOS.com/audio. Application times may vary. Rates may vary.
Confronting high credit card debt can feel scary. But the good news is, if you owe $10,000 or more in credit card debt, financial relief options are now available. National Debt Relief is currently offering debt relief designed to reduce what you owe, fast-tracking your way to being debt-free. If you qualify for debt relief, you may be able to pay back significantly less than what you owe and save thousands of dollars. Imagine only paying one low monthly program payment you can afford and saving money as you become debt-free. National Debt Relief has already helped bring debt relief to over 550,000 U.S. consumers, earning thousands of 5-star reviews and an A+ rating with the Better Business Bureau. You're stronger than your credit card debt. Take the first step and visit nationaldebtrelief.com to see what debt relief you qualify for. That's nationaldebtrelief.com.
That came purely as a result of victory in the Falklands.
Yeah.
And my contention is actually that was the icing on the cake, the rubber stamp. It was almost the Old Trafford Test match, if you like, when they actually won the Ashes. But when you look at the detail, 1981 was the year that made the difference, because at any point, they were both under massive pressure to go through that year. She survived as skipper. He didn't survive as skipper, but look at the way that he came back and turned things around. She also turned things around in a much less immediately discernible way in 1981. And it was that, as much as the Falklands, that then made the difference as we came to 1983. But to come back to your points there about the music and that sort of thing, there's a chapter called A Year Like No Other, and it picks up on the fact that when you delve into 1981, you do have the Ashes, but then change, this theme of change was everywhere. Yeah. In sport, Muhammad Ali's last ever fight, 1981, the passing of that particular baton in a fairly sad manner. Steve Davis winning probably ahead of Botham as the ultimate Thatcherite in terms of the way that he took his sport into the area of entrepreneurship. 81, his first world title. McEnroe taking over the mantle from Borg by finally winning Wimbledon. The first ever London Marathon. The juxtaposition between the horrors of Basel and Oslo and England losing to Switzerland and Norway in World Cup qualifiers while smashing up the down followed by World Cup qualification. Yeah. And then, of course, there was the cricket. And that's just in sport.
Yes.
But when you looked at the other elements, there's a guy called Trevor Harley who I interviewed who is a psychologist but a specialist in weather. And his particular interest is how weather affects mood. And he considers the weather of 1981 to be one of the most standout and interesting of the entire century. And when you look at the way that the weather tracked the downs and then the ups and the recoveries in terms of one of the most gloomy, horrendous Junes and Julys that we'd had in recent memory, as Ghost Town was topping the charts, as the riots were happening, as the hunger strikers were passing away, versus the sun suddenly coming out on the day of the royal wedding and blazing through the Edgbaston Test match where Botham did things for the second time. All of these things, but that then it kind of brings me on to when I talk about the Edgbaston Test match, and I always feel if I'm having a conversation with you that Birmingham should get a significant up in the whole thing.
We certainly should.
It was kind of appropriate how Birmingham played a key part in the Ashes with the second incredible victory at Edgbaston at the end of July, beginning of August, because the musical juxtaposition of 1981 had its absolute roots in the West Midlands and in Birmingham. And obviously, I mean, you all know this, but everyone knows about the Specials and Ghost Town and it being possibly the most apposite number one record of all time in terms of its synergy with the mood of the country. Yeah. But what emerged in looking at this is that two Birmingham acts, probably three actually, but two within July 1981, which is the absolute focal point of the change, they bellwethered the change in a way. So you'd had UB40, incredible band who had 3 top 10 hits in the 1980s, and were in July 1981 they released 1 in 10, which is my personal favourite.
Jimmy Browne wrote that.
They didn't then actually have another top 10 hit until they went to number 1 in 1983 with Red Room Wine. Yeah. And by that stage, obviously, the polemic of the band had gone, that deep political protest of things like 1 in 10. But in the same month that the specials came off number one and disbanded, and Neville Staples, Linville Golding, and Terry Hall departed, with Terry Hall telling The Big Issue, I think, recently that, well, not that recently, but obviously before he passed away, bless him, that he felt uncomfortable with the success of Ghost Town and a gold disc and that sort of thing. It didn't seem to be to him what it was about. Yeah. But basically, and the same time as that was happening, Duran Duran were landing in the charts with their first ever top 5 hit. And this was basically the moment of the move from two-tone reggae, the political protest that came out in 1980 and early 81, into what a journalist called Michael Han in The Guardian called Thatcherism on vinyl, which was basically what the new romantics would become. So the handing of the baton during the year from the likes of the Specials and UB40 in their original guise onto the likes of Duran Duran, Spandau Ballet, etc., was interesting. But it wasn't the first time that Birmingham and Birmingham's music had reflected the nation, because I'd say in the book that in August 1980,
Boost Mobile is now sending experts nationwide to deliver and set up customers' new phones.
Wait, we're going on tour?
We're delivering and setting up customers' phones. It's not a tour.
Not with that attitude.
Introducing Store to Door. Switch and get a new device with expert setup and delivery.
Delivery available for select devices purchased at boostmobile.com.
Hey folks, it's Mark Maron from WTF, and today I want to talk to you about Boost Mobile. So you're thinking about upgrading to the amazing new iPhone 17 Pro, the most powerful phone yet, with 8 times optical zoom. But are you also thinking about the hassle of getting the phone at the store and transferring all your data? Well, good news. When you order a new phone online with Boost Mobile, they'll send an expert to your home or work to deliver your brand new iPhone 17 Pro and get you all set up on Boost Mobile within minutes. Visit boostmobile.com to get started. Delivery available for select devices purchased at boostmobile.com. Terms apply.
On the very same day as Botham lost his first series as captain, and people were calling for him to go after defeat against the West Indies, the same day it was officially announced the country was in recession. And what song had just landed in the charts? The Beats' Stand Down Margaret.
Yes, and she never.
I see no pain, I see only sorrow. I see no chance of your bright new tomorrow. So Dave Wakeling had basically in 2 lines encaptured the start of the 80s.
And threw her words straight back down her gob, which a lot of people did, didn't they?
No, absolutely, and fair enough. I mean, I there's a chapter early in the book called "May We Bring Hope," which were those slightly pious words that came out on the steps of number 10 Downing Street on the 3rd of May in 1979. And, we're basically saying that by the time we'd got to June, July 1981, May We Bring Hope seemed fairly forlorn. And yet, in the space of a month, the juxtapositions of July 1981 are fairly ridiculous. In terms of literally day by day. So on the 5th of July, Ghost Town goes to number 1. On the 7th of July, Botham resigns the England captaincy, and the Sun's headline is "No job, no money, no future." The day afterwards, Joe McDonnell becomes the 5th IRA hunger striker to pass away, and Arthur Scargill puts in a 24% pay claim for the miners. The day after that, David Jacobs introduces the 900th edition of Top of the Pops and looks rather nonplussed at the end of the playing of the Ghost Town video, number 1, and came back with the words, "Oh dear, that wasn't very cheerful, was it?" And
no, it wasn't.
And 2 days after that, the riot spread to 6 other cities. So that was where we were in the first half of July, and yet, on the 21st of July, Botham turns around Headingley, 2 days, by the way, after Girls on Film had just entered the charts, And the 26th, the specials are off number one. The 28th, was the final day of the Toxteth riots, and the unfortunate death of the only civilian to die as a result of those riots. And the following day was the royal wedding, and the sun came out. And then the day after that, the Edgbaston Test match started, and the day after that, 1 in 10 was released. It's just, I apologise for the verbal diarrhea, but I'm just fascinated about the detail of, because until you research it and you read it, you wouldn't actually believe it.
Absolutely. Ben, we're going to have to leave it there. Can I thank you so much for your time? I'm putting the book up to the camera. Something Changed. Where can people buy this wonderful book? Because you've just given us a great account of some of what's in there, but it is explosive stuff. It's fantastic. It touches that time that when lots of us were growing up and going through school, etc., and a wonderful halcyon time in the cultural existence of us on this planet. It means a lot to me,
absolutely. And if I could have conveyed that, then that's brilliant as a part of the book. I'd like to thank you, Paul, because you've always been super generous with me and very supportive of the writing. Basically, the good news, as far as I'm concerned, is that the book is pretty much available everywhere. The usual Jeff Bezos route, but if you want to give me a better royalty percentage, it's in Waterstones around the country and that sort of thing. So if you want to make me slightly more rich and Jeff Bezos slightly less rich, then go to Waterstones. But there we go.
Lovely. And Pitch Publishers were the ones that published
Pitch have been fantastic.
I'm sure
the second book I've done with them. And
I'm sure Duncan arranged that front cover, as he does with most of Pitch Publishers' books.
Brilliant, yeah.
Ben, thanks so much. Good luck going forward, and we'll speak to you again with Fuck All Change, your next book.
Fantastic. I'll speak to you next year.
Cheers, pal. Thanks, Ben.
Cheers. Bye-bye.
And thanks for listening, guys. Ta-ra a bit. Ta-ra a bit.
Every day there's a new challenge to face, so meet Trimble, the technology company that connects your physical and digital worlds, allowing you to make decisions and take intelligent action to get the hard work done. And the best part, you can do it all faster than you've ever thought possible. Check them out at Trimble.com. You ready to turn data points into decision points or turn deadlines into finish lines? How about turning possibilities into profits? Then turn to Trimble.
The NFL is back, and FanDuel's got everything you need to play your game, from same-game parlays to live betting. Right now, new customers bet $5 and get $300 in bonus bets if you win. 21 plus and present in select states. 18 plus in Kentucky and Wyoming. Must be first online real money wager. $5 deposit required. Bonus issued as non-withdrawable bonus bets that expire 7 days after receipt. Restrictions apply. See full terms at FanDuel.com/sportsbook. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER.
Life is unpredictable, but how you prepare for the unexpected shouldn't be. Take ownership of your life planning with Policy Genius to help your loved ones have a financial safety net in case something happens to you. Whether to cover debts and routine expenses or even invest the money and earn interest over time. With Policy Genius, finding and buying life insurance is simple. You can compare quotes from top insurers and could find coverage that fits your needs and your budget. Plus, they offer life insurance policies starting at just $276 a year for $1 million in coverage. It's an easy way to feel good about and plan for the future. No wonder Policy Genius is the country's leading online insurance marketplace. Don't wait for life to make other plans. Protect your family today. Head to PolicyGenius.com to compare top-rated life insurance policies, get your lowest quote, and make a smart move in under 10 minutes. That's PolicyGenius.com.